growing up, I don't know if you know this. I have 3 sisters.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
I have 3 sisters. How many siblings do you have?
I grew up with 6 older brothers, and I have 2 baby sisters.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Big family.
Big family. Absolute cluster.
Were they like half siblings or something like half siblings?
2 my dad adopted. My older brothers, Benj and Alex, and they were both disabled. So I grew up in like a handicap able home. And then one of them passed away in 2004. And then I grew up with 2 stepbrothers that lived with my mom. Okay. And so I had 2 different brothers at 2 different houses, and then my 2 blood brothers that went back and forth with me.
That is so weird.
It was wacky.
Was it one of those things? We'll get back to video games, but was it one of those things where so growing up, we all have these situations that we live through that are completely normal to us, right? And then we would hang out with a friend of ours or something. We'd go over to their house, and the things that they do are not normal. For instance, I had a buddy of mine in middle school, high school, and whenever I go over to his house, he could play video games whenever, and he could eat whatever he wanted.
Was he an only child?
No, he had 2 other siblings. But they were just, and here's the thing too, they were always nice to each other. Bloom, that.
Were his parents still together?
They were, and then they got divorced. But then they were still like, they were all like super nice to each other all the time. They never got into a fight ever. That is weird to me.
That's weird to me.
That's weird to me.
That's very weird to me.
That's so, because when I grew up with my siblings, we would fight each other. We went to martial arts and we learned how to kick each other's asses.
Yeah, dude.
And so that was always weird. Like I would always be like, wow, you just told your brother that you're going to keep playing and he's going to play later? What?
You guys didn't physically just have an altercation?
He didn't call you a butthead? What?
See, in my house, it was like really vulgar language because my brothers are a lot older than me.
Sure.
And they're all really, really gnarly. And I grew up as the baby. You know, I was the only girl, the only baby. My mother and my grandmother were my only like female presence, and both of them had mastectomies and hysterectomies. Ooh. So they just were not really women at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So sure. So I grew up thinking I was pretty much a boy. So I grew up fighting. I grew up saying awful things, like super awful things to my siblings. There were times where it would be like, let's hunt Madi, you know, and I'd get chased around the house with a paintball gun that has Nerf darts with tacks glued to them.
Oh,
and my
classic.
Brother, yeah.
The classic.
Yeah. And my brothers would just like be like, all right, run.
Yep.
And I would just have to like take off in the house.
Wow.
Yeah. Because my mom also worked a lot. Like a lot. So she was never home. Yeah.
And you wow, yeah. And you're straight, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the only reason why I bring that up is because it's interesting. Growing up, the only male presence that I had in my life was my father. Mm-hmm. And then at one point, my grandfather. But I grew up with 3 sisters, my mother and my grandmother. All women, you know?
Yeah. Was it like heavy feminine energy or like that you noticed?
Extremely.
Yeah.
Like, of course. Absolutely. Because, my sisters grew up like traditional ass sisters, you know, with a little dash of Hispanic there.
Oh, yes.
You know, so
the spice.
The sass. The eggs. Oh.
Were they mean to you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my sisters were so... I was mean to them, too. Like, really? we were all terrible to each other. And then the worst part is they'd be mean to each other as well. Mm-hmm. And we'd always gang up, like... I don't hate you right now, so let's gang up on the smaller one.
That was definitely my family. It was always 2 against 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. My older brother would always instigate by like pinching me and then saying it was my other brother, and I would just slap the shit out of him, and then it would just go off.
See,
you know?
you didn't grow up with sexism. I grew up with...
it didn't matter, dude. Like in my family, it was just like, it's boys. You know what I mean? Like men know better. You know, they're gonna kick your ass if you say anything against them. So it wasn't like I never got to play that card, and even if I did, I always got shut down.
See, my sisters, every time.
Yeah.
I would do anything, and my mother would always take their side.
My mom never took my side.
That's so weird.
Yeah, like I would show up with bruises and bite marks all over me and be like, they beat the shit out of me. And she'd be like, you probably deserved it.
Oh,
you know?
that's a mother thing.
Dude, for real. But I grew up with like some weird stuff with my mom where we're just now getting to a point where we like each other.
Nice.
Yeah. There's always been like weird jealousy and just whack, you know?
Yeah, it gets better.
Does
it gets better as when the older you get. It might be in combination of you kind of like understand where they were coming from, maybe not to the full extent, because every generation of parenting is different.
Yeah.
No matter, even if I have kids, I know it's not going to be the same, just because of everything that we have now.
Definitely
to our disposal.
I think the world's scarier now, like
much,
way scarier.
Yeah, much scarier.
With access to the internet, like my brother's 2.5-year-old has a tablet and has access to the internet, and that honestly scares the shit out of me. I'm just like, what are you learning? You know, my 8-year-old niece is on TikTok in booty shorts and is dancing and doing like the most weird things ever, and my stepsister's just like, it's cool, whatever, you know.
I mean, but maybe it's just because it's so normal now.
Still not normal to me, you know.
And it won't be.
No,
and it won't.
I don't think it ever will be. And if I ever have kids, I'm moving out in the middle of freaking nowhere, and they're not gonna have access to anything.
It will be when she's talking to her friends when they grow up and they're in their 20s and they're talking to each other, and they're gonna start saying, "Oh, what I did as a kid, it was so normal." That's how it works. That's how generational. I'm sure there's a term for it, but essentially that's how that works. Every generation is, you know, there's something new that happens each and every time. Like, imagine growing up in a time where the Beatles was a rebellion. Like listening to Beatles was rebellious. And exactly, but we all know that to be a fact. We all know that was actually how it was perceived by that older generation.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, it's crazy to me. Exactly. I mean, I can't even imagine what is going through the heads of my elders, like the people in my family, like when they see me, because they see me and then they see my success and they're just like, why?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly, but that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
So
maybe that's me being the older, like, oh, you gosh darn you kids getting sexualized too young. It's bothering me. You know?
Not that okay. I'm also not trying to justify that.
No, like, I'm not saying you are at all, but you make sense.
Yeah, there's no way possible that you're never gonna find me in a position where, well, you know what, that's totally.
It is kind of hot on TikTok, you know.
It's not okay, but it's turning okay, and that's what's scary. That's the bad part. That's the bad thing that's happening. Like, it's slowly turning into something that's completely okay.